My sister said I was a bad influence on her kids and cut me off. 3 years later, her teenage son called me in tears because she kicked him out. I let him move in, fed him, helped him graduate, then blocked her number when she demanded I send him home. I'm Alex, 32, male, and my sister Megan, 35, has hated me for as long as I can remember. She wouldn't call it hate, she'd call it boundaries or protecting her kids. But really, it's judgment dressed up as moral high ground. For most of our lives, we were civil but distant. We'd see each other at Christmas, maybe text on birthdays. She married Tom when she was 23, had 2 kids by 28, and morphed into this suburban Pinterest mom who thought my life choices were some kind of cautionary tale. I work in a music store, play in a garage band on weekends, and have zero interest in HOA meetings or buying a house in some cul-de-sac where every lawn looks cloned. 3 years ago, things blew up completely. She invited me over for her youngest birthday, and I showed up with a guitar-shaped cake I'd spent all night making. She pulled me aside in the kitchen and said, "Alex, you're fun, but you're not the example I want for my kids. I don't want them thinking your lifestyle is something to aspire to." I thought she was joking at first. She wasn't. She told me it was best if we took a break from seeing each other's families. That break turned into her blocking me on Facebook, ignoring texts, and pretending I didn't exist at family gatherings. I'd love to say I didn't care, but it hit harder than I wanted to admit. I'd been the fun uncle who showed her kids magic tricks, taught them guitar chords, and let them stay up late watching old monster movies. I figured they'd forget me eventually. Then, 3 years later, 2 months ago, I got a call at midnight. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something in me said, "Pick up." It was Ethan, her oldest, now 17. His voice was shaking, half choked by tears. He said, "She kicked me out. I don't have anywhere to go." Apparently, they'd gotten into a fight. He wouldn't tell me the details right away, and Megan told him to be a man and get out of her house if he didn't like her rules. Tom backed her up. They shoved a duffel bag at him and locked the door. He'd been wandering around town in the cold for hours before calling me. I told him to come over immediately. I made him a grilled cheese, set up the couch, and didn't ask too many questions that first night. The kid looked hollow, like he'd been holding back for years. Over the next week, I helped him get his school stuff transferred, bought him some decent winter clothes, and made sure he actually ate. Megan didn't call at first. When she did, it was a single text. "Send Ethan home. He needs to learn consequences." I didn't respond. The next day, she called 15 times in a row. I let it go to voicemail. She tried from Tom's phone, then my mom's. Finally, she left a long, breathless message about how I was undermining her parenting and encouraging rebellion. That was the moment I realized she wasn't worried about Ethan. She was worried about control. I blocked her number. And for the first time in years, I felt completely calm. The first 2 weeks with Ethan were quiet. Not awkward quiet, more like the kind of quiet that comes after a storm, when the air still feels charged but you can finally breathe. He'd sleep until noon the first few days, then shuffle into the kitchen in a hoodie with his hair a mess, mumble morning, and plop down at the table. I didn't push. I'd make eggs or pancakes, and we'd eat in this comfortable silence. Slowly, he started talking about school, his friends, his part-time job at the skate shop. And then, one night, the dam broke. We were watching some cheesy 80s horror movie, and out of nowhere he said, "She told me I'm just like you. That's why she kicked me out." I asked what he meant, and he gave this bitter laugh. "She said you're a failure who never grew up, and she's not going to watch me turn into another you." I told her, "You're the only one in the family who actually listens to me." That's when she lost it. Hearing it made my chest tighten in that ugly mix of anger and guilt. I'd been her scapegoat for years, but now she was using me as a weapon against her own kid. I wanted to drive over there and scream in her face, but I also knew that's exactly what she wanted. A scene. Drama she could spin into her version of the story. Instead, I focused on giving Ethan something he clearly hadn't had in a while. Stability. We worked out a routine. I'd head to the store in the mornings, he'd do online schoolwork in the afternoons, and we'd make dinner together most nights. He was sharper than I remembered, sarcastic, quick with a comeback, but never mean. Then Megan started escalating. First, it was calls from unknown numbers. I'd answer, and it would be her voice, starting sweet, then snapping into full-blown rage when I said Ethan wasn't coming back. She accused me of harboring her child like I'd kidnapped him. Next came the drive-bys. My neighbor texted me one afternoon. "Think your sister's outside. Same SUV from Christmas a couple years ago?" I peeked through the blinds and there she was, sitting in her car across the street, engine idling, sunglasses on. She stayed there for over an hour. Ethan saw her once through the window and froze, his fork halfway to his mouth. "If I go out there, she'll take me," he said quietly. That night, she switched tactics. I got a string of Facebook messages from relatives I hadn't talked to in years. Stuff like, "Family comes first, Alex. Do the right thing." My aunt even accused me of turning Ethan against his own mother. Ethan read over my shoulder and shook his head. "They don't know me. They just know her version of me." It would have been easy to cave, to send him back just to stop the chaos. But every time I thought about it, I pictured him that first night, shivering in my doorway, holding a duffel bag like it was all he had left. That image alone was enough to make me dig my heels in. And I had no idea yet how much Megan was willing to burn down to get her way. Don't forget to subscribe. The night Megan finally snapped is burned into my brain like a bad tattoo. It was a Friday around 8:30. I'd just gotten home from a late shift at the shop, and Ethan was in the kitchen making popcorn. We were halfway through some dumb conspiracy doc on Netflix when the pounding started. Not knocking, pounding, the kind that makes the walls shake. Ethan's face drained of color. "It's her," he said, barely above a whisper. I told him to stay put and went to the door. Sure enough, Megan was on my porch, hair wild, mascara streaked, wearing some oversized hoodie like she'd stormed out mid-breakdown. Before I could say a word, she shoved past me into the living room. "Ethan, get your stuff. Now, we're going home." He didn't move, just stared at her from the kitchen doorway, clutching the popcorn bowl like it was a shield. I stepped between them. "He's not going anywhere." That's when she turned on me. "You think you're some kind of hero, Alex? You're poisoning him, filling his head with your loser crap so he'll end up just like you, alone, broke, pathetic." She was shaking, voice cracking, but her eyes were pure fire. I told her she needed to leave before I called the cops. She laughed, but it wasn't a normal laugh. It was this high, broken sound that made my skin crawl. Then she spotted Ethan's backpack by the couch and lunged for it. Ethan darted forward, grabbed it first. She yanked, he held on, and the strap snapped. The popcorn bowl hit the floor and shattered. That was it. I stepped in, got between them, and physically guided her toward the door. Not shoving, but firm enough she couldn't push past me again. That's when she lost it completely. She started pounding her fists on my chest, screaming every insult she could think of. Deadbeat, parasite, druggie, which is hilarious considering I've never even smoked a cigarette. Then she went for my face, nails out. I caught her wrists, told her she needed to stop, and that's when Ethan shouted, "Mom, you're scaring me." That froze her. For about 2 seconds. Then she slapped me. Hard. I just went cold. Didn't say a word. I opened the door, stepped aside, and pointed out. "Leave. Now." She stood there breathing hard, like she wanted to spit in my face, but finally stormed out. Tires squealed as she tore off. Ethan didn't say anything for a long time. He just sat on the couch, staring at the busted popcorn bowl on the floor. Eventually, he muttered, "She's never hit you before, has she?" I shook my head. He sighed. "She hit me once, last year. Said it was because I was mouthing off. I didn't tell anyone." That broke something in me. I'd known she could be cruel, manipulative, but hearing that, knowing she'd crossed that line with her own kid, any trace of sympathy I had for her evaporated. That night, I changed the locks. And I started thinking about how to make sure she'd never have that kind of power over Ethan again. After the slap, after Ethan's quiet confession, I didn't sleep for more than 20 minutes at a time that whole night. I just kept pacing the living room, replaying everything. Her face, The way Ethan flinched when she came at him, the look in his eyes when he admitted she'd hit him before. I knew two things by sunrise. One, if she thought she could just come here whenever she wanted, she'd keep showing up. Two, if I sent him back, I'd be sending him straight into the line of fire. So I started making calls. First to a buddy of mine, Caleb, who works in security. He came over that afternoon and installed a camera system. Front door, back door, driveway, living room. All motion triggered, with audio. If she tries anything again, you'll have proof, he said. Next, I called a family lawyer. I told her everything. The midnight call, the threats, the drive-bys, the slap, Ethan's admission. She didn't sugarcoat it. Custody cases between a parent and a non-parent are uphill battles. But when I mentioned Ethan was 17, she perked up. At his age, his preference carries a lot of weight. If he's willing to give a statement, we can at least file for guardianship until he turns 18. Ethan didn't even hesitate when I asked. I'll tell them everything. I don't care if she hates me for it. She already does. For a few days, things were quiet. Too quiet. Megan wasn't calling, wasn't showing up, and I could feel the tension in the house loosening. Ethan even laughed a couple times. A real laugh, not the guarded, I'm fine kind. Then, Saturday morning, I woke up to 37 new texts from unknown numbers. Different area codes, different fake friendly openers. Hey, is this Alex? Just wondering if you can help a friend in need. Or, do the right thing, man. Send Ethan home. One was just a picture of my house from across the street. By noon, my voicemail was full. The relatives had kicked into overdrive. Cousins, an uncle I hadn't spoken to in a decade, even a woman claiming to be a friend from church who told me God was watching my selfishness. It was obvious Megan had gone nuclear, pulling in anyone she could to harass me. Ethan saw one of the messages and rolled his eyes. She's trying to make it hell for you so you'll give up. Don't. That night, I sat him down and said, if we're going to do this, we're doing it right. No half measures. He looked confused, so I told him my plan. Something more than just guardianship paperwork. Something that would flip the script, make her realize she couldn't bully her way back into control. The first step was going to hurt her pride in a way she'd never recover from. The second step would be, well, poetic. I didn't tell him all of it yet, just enough to make him smirk for the first time in weeks. And 2 days later, Megan would walk right into the start of it without even realizing. Don't forget to subscribe. Update. 1. All right, Reddit. So, apparently my life has turned into a soap opera people can't look away from. I posted the first parts of this thinking maybe a few folks would get it, maybe offer some advice. Instead, I woke up to over 1,000 comments, DMs from people telling me to adopt that kid yesterday, and a few, let's call them colorful suggestions. Some of y'all really said, just burn her house down. Tempting, not gonna lie, but arson's kind of a one-way ticket to a prison bunkmate named Spider, so I'll pass. My personal favorite comment was, next time she shows up, blast "We Are the Champions" from the front porch and hand Ethan a milkshake. I might actually do that one. A few people called me out saying I should have gone scorched earth on her years ago. And honestly, you're right. I'd been holding back because, well, she's my sister. You tell yourself there's a line you won't cross with family. But here's the thing. She bulldozed that line a long time ago. Ethan read through some of the comments last night. The way his face lit up when he saw strangers, actual strangers, calling her behavior abusive, it hit me. He's been told for years that he's too sensitive or disrespectful for not just taking whatever she dishes out. Now he sees hundreds of people validating his reality. So, here's where we stand. Cameras are up, lawyers in the loop. Ethan's all in. He's willing to give a statement, show proof, whatever it takes. Megan is still quiet, which makes me more suspicious than relieved. That woman is like a wasp. You lose track of her for too long. She's building a nest somewhere. And as for the poetic revenge I hinted at, let's just say I'm setting her up to choke on her own public image. She's obsessed with being the perfect mom TM, the kind who posts humble brags about teaching her teens responsibility while hiding the fact she threw her kid out on the street at midnight. In a few days, that image is going to take a hit she'll never see coming. Because when she tries to weaponize the family against me again, she's going to find out I've been quietly building my own army. 3 days after the update, Megan finally resurfaced, and it was like she'd been saving up all her crazy. It started with a text from my mom. "We're having a family dinner Sunday. Everyone's coming. Bring Ethan so we can talk this out." Translation: "We've staged an ambush. Wear something nice so we can photograph your defeat." I showed Ethan. He laughed without humor. "If I go, it'll just be her screaming while everyone nods." "Exactly," I said, "which is why we're going." See, Megan has always cared more about appearances than reality. She thrives on controlling the narrative. If we didn't show, she'd spin it into Alex is hiding Ethan from his own family because he knows he's wrong. But if we did show, on our terms, we could take control. And I'd been preparing for exactly that. Sunday rolls around. I drive us to my parents' place, park a few houses down so Megan doesn't see us coming. Ethan's wearing a clean hoodie, jeans, and this smirk that tells me he's ready. I've got my phone in my pocket, recording. We walk in, and the room goes quiet. Megan's at the table wearing her concerned mom face, flanked by Tom and my parents. Cousins, aunts, hell, even the family friend from church who'd left me that guilt trip voicemail, are crammed in like it's a reality TV intervention. Megan starts her speech immediately. "Ethan, we all love you, and we want what's best for you. But living with Uncle Alex is not in your best interest. He's unstable, irresponsible. And not the one who kicked me out in the middle of the night." Ethan cuts in, loud enough to make the forks clink against plates. She blinks, recovers. "You were disrespectful and you slapped me last year, remember?" he says, steady. "You told me to keep my mouth shut about it, or you'd make my life hell. Well, guess what? You already did." The room goes dead silent. My mom looks at Megan like she's just sprouted horns. Tom shifts in his seat. Megan's voice wavers. "That's not true." I pull out my phone, hit play. It's a clip from my living room camera, the night she showed up pounding on the door. You can hear her screaming insults, hear Ethan saying, "You're scaring me," and you can definitely hear the slap. Gasps, whispers. One of my aunts mutters, "Oh my God." Megan shoots up from her chair, face red, voice cracking. "This is taken out of context." "No," I say, calm as hell. "This is the context, and this is exactly why he's staying with me." She looks around the table for backup. No one moves. Finally, she storms out, muttering about how we're all ungrateful traitors. Tom follows her, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. Ethan exhales, shoulders relaxing for the first time all day. "That felt good," he says quietly. And that's when I knew we'd just hit phase 1 of my plan. The perfect mom TM mask had slipped, in front of the exact people whose approval she craves most. Phase 2 would make sure that mask stayed cracked forever. Phase 2 started with a Facebook post. Not from me, Ethan. See, Megan loves curating her family brand online. Every post is a carefully staged shot of the kids smiling, captions about gratitude and the joys of motherhood, hashtags like blessed and busy. The truth, obviously, didn't fit her feed. So Ethan decided to share it himself. He picked a photo Megan had posted 6 months ago, him and his little sister on the porch, forced smiles, holding pumpkins. Then he wrote, "This was the day after my mom told me I'm just like my loser uncle, and that she didn't want me in her house if I wouldn't live exactly how she wanted. Last month she kicked me out at midnight. I've been living with Uncle Alex ever since. He's fed me, given me a bed, and actually listens to me. Just thought you should know the full story behind the picture." He tagged her. I told him to expect blowback. He said, "Good, let them see." It exploded. Friends, classmates, even parents from his school started commenting. Half were supportive. "Proud of you for speaking up, Ethan." Others were shocked. "Wait, your mom kicked you out? At 17? By that evening, Megan's friends list had dropped by dozens. The PTA moms who usually hyped her posts were silent. And then, the kicker, one of her coworkers commented, "Isn't this against district policy?" That's when Megan called. Not texted, called from a blocked number. I put it on speaker. "You little manipulative," she started. Then she saw she was on speaker, heard my voice, and went icy cold. "Alex, take that post down. Now. You're ruining my reputation." "No," I said. "Ethan's telling the truth. If that ruins your reputation, that's on you." She started crying. The kind of crying that sounds like it's for show. "Do you have any idea what people are saying about me? They think I'm abusive." Ethan leaned toward the phone. "Maybe because you are." And he hung up. 2 days later, she tried showing up at his school during lunch to talk. Big mistake. Ethan's friends knew what was going on, and one of them filmed her cornering him by the vending machines. You can hear her saying, "You've embarrassed me for the last time," and him replying, "You did that yourself." The clip hit Snapchat. By that night, it was everywhere in their little social circle. Megan, the self-proclaimed perfect mom, TM, reduced to a red-faced, finger-pointing mess in front of half the junior class. And I wasn't even done yet, because while she was busy chasing her image online, I'd been finalizing paperwork with my lawyer. Paperwork that would cut off her last leverage over Ethan completely. Update 2. All right, Reddit. Time for round 2 of I didn't think it would blow up this much. After Ethan's post and the school video, I thought maybe we'd get a few days of quiet. Nope. My phone's been a circus. I've had 3 different PTA moms DM me, thanking me for finally saying what everyone's been whispering about Megan for years. A random guy from my high school, who I haven't talked to in a decade, messaged me, "Bro, your sister always thought she was the queen of everything. Glad someone finally knocked her down a peg." One incredible voicemail from my Aunt Carol that started with, "Well, this is awkward," and ended with, "Anyway, if you need a witness in court, I'll testify." And yes, Megan's still calling from blocked numbers, except now she switches between sobbing apologies and nuclear threats in the same breath. Last night's greatest hits. "You've ruined my life. I hope you're happy turning my son against me. Maybe I'll just move away and you'll never see him again." And my personal favorite, "You're going to regret this when you're old and alone." The comment section here has been wild too. Half of you are ready to start a GoFundMe to get Ethan a Child Team Uncle hoodie. The other half are basically writing scripts for a Netflix docuseries called The Perfect Mom Lie. I'd watch it. Some people have warned me that Megan might try to pull something legal, but here's the thing. My lawyer has already filed for temporary guardianship. At 17, Ethan's testimony is almost everything. And with the recordings, the school video, and half the extended family now on my side, she's in a corner. Ethan's been reading the supportive comments you guys left for him. The other night he said, "It's weird. I thought I'd feel bad airing all this out, but it's like, I can breathe again." So yeah, Phase 2 wasn't just about humiliating her. It was about making sure Ethan never feels trapped by her version of reality again. Phase 3? That's where I put the legal nail in her coffin and make sure she can't mess with him again, even after he turns 18. And there's a little poetic touch to it that I think you guys will appreciate. Phase 3 started with a manila envelope and a smirk from my lawyer. We'd filed for temporary guardianship already, but now she'd prepped something extra, a petition for Ethan to be emancipated early, with me as his legal guardian until his 18th birthday. That way, even if Megan tried to play nice and welcome him home, she'd have zero legal say in his life. The emancipation part wasn't strictly necessary. Ethan's only a few months from adulthood. But it was the poetic twist. Megan had spent years telling everyone he was just a kid who didn't know what he wanted. Having a judge officially recognize that he did know and that he wanted nothing to do with her would be the ultimate slap in the face. We set the court date for a Monday morning. I didn't tell Ethan about the poetic twist until the day before, when I handed him the copy of the petition with his name front and center. He just stared at it for a second, then grinned. "Let's do it." Court day, Megan shows up in full, misunderstood mom costume, conservative dress, hair neatly done, tissues in hand. Tom's there too, looking like he'd rather be at the dentist. The judge let Ethan speak first. He told everything, how she'd kicked him out, the threats, the slap, the public blow-ups. He didn't cry, didn't raise his voice. He just laid it out like it was fact, because it was. Then it was Megan's turn. She tried to paint me as an unstable influence, said I was filling his head with lies, that he was just going through a rebellious phase. She even pulled out the old, "he's just like Alex" line, as if that was a legal argument. That's when my lawyer stood up and played the living room recording. The pounding on the door, the insults, Ethan saying, "You're scaring me," and that loud, undeniable slap. The judge's eyebrows went up. Megan's face went sheet white. It was over in 15 minutes. Petition granted. Ethan legally in my care until 18. Megan ordered to have no unannounced contact. But here's where the poetic part kicked in. The judge looked right at Megan and said, "Given his age and testimony, it's clear he's capable of making his own decisions. I hope you take this time to reflect on why your child felt the need to take such a serious step." Translation: This is your fault, lady. We walked out into the sunlight, and Ethan actually laughed. Not the bitter kind, real laughter. "She's gonna hate that more than anything you've done so far." And he was right. That night, Megan's Facebook went dark. No humble brag posts, no holiday photos, just silence. But I wasn't done, not entirely. There was one last thing I wanted to do, not out of spite, but to make sure she never got to rewrite this story in her favor. The last move wasn't about lawyers, courtrooms, or even Megan herself. It was about locking the truth in place so she could never twist it back into her concerned mother fairy tale. Ethan and I sat down one Saturday with my laptop. I told him, "You don't owe the world your life story, but if you want, we can make sure the people who matter hear it straight from you, in your own words." He nodded immediately. We spent hours writing. Not a rant, not a hit piece, just his account. The nights on my couch, the threats, the slap, the way it felt to be treated like an inconvenience by your own mother. He kept stopping to ask, "Is this too much?" And I kept saying, "No, it's yours to tell." When it was done, he posted it to his socials and sent it directly to a short, targeted list. Family, close friends, a couple of his teachers, and, this part was his idea, the principal who'd seen Megan cause a scene at the school. No hashtags, no drama. Just, this is my side. I don't want sympathy. I just want people to understand why I'm where I am and why I'm not going back. The responses were overwhelming. Former babysitters messaged saying they'd seen her temper. Neighbors admitted they'd heard yelling through the walls. Even a few relatives who'd been siding with her called me to say, "We didn't know it was this bad." Megan didn't comment. She didn't call. She didn't even send one of her flying monkeys to deliver a message. It was like she'd been muted in real life. Her perfect mom TM brand had taken too many hits. Anything she said now would just draw more attention to the truth. Ethan's last day of high school was 2 weeks later. I stood in the back of the gym during the graduation ceremony, watching him walk across the stage, diploma in hand. He spotted me, grinned, and gave this tiny salute like we'd just pulled off the greatest heist in history. And in a way, we had. We'd stolen back his story. After the ceremony, while everyone else was taking group photos, Ethan handed me a small envelope. Inside was a printed screenshot of the court order, and, underneath, in his messy handwriting, "Thanks for showing me family can be chosen. E." That's when it hit me. We hadn't just beaten Megan at her own control game. We'd built something she couldn't touch. And for the first time in years, I wasn't thinking about what she might do next. I was thinking about what we might do next. She's still blocked. The cameras are still up. And my front porch? Always open. For Ethan, not for her. Because sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't burning someone's world down. It's making sure they can't walk into yours ever again.